Today, we're going to be talking about Pacific Rim Uprising. So stay tuned.
Welcome to The Real Review.
Welcome to The Real Review, sponsored by Parametric and Lazy Ape Studios, where you get some of the latest happenings, real thoughts, and perspectives in the world of film and television. I'm here with Matt Rock'em Sock'em. Matt, hey.
Yeah, everybody.
Matt Rock'em Sock'em, hey. But
yeah, and everybody, I'm here with Joel is canceling the apocalypse, Cunningham.
That's good. Yeah,
That's my favorite line, by the way, the whole thing.
I did chuckle.
That was the only time I
chuckled,
chuckled, but we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. So, yeah, today we're going to be talking about Pacific Rim Uprising. Before we get to that, though, Matt, why don't you give our lovely viewers, we have our vidcast back up, and our listeners some ways to get connected to the
vidcast people, podcast people. So you can connect with us a number of different ways, starting off with our website, which is realreviewmedia.com. You can connect through all of our channels there, social networking, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Real Review Media. Again, that's REEL. Then also our YouTube channel, youtube.com/The Real Review. And you can also email us, realreviewmedia@gmail.com. And that's how you can do that. Bam.
Awesome. How are you doing? You doing good?
Doing all right, man. We moved into a new house like a little over a week ago. And every night is just like more back-breaking work just to get stuff going. It's crazy.
You were talking a little bit about that with the plumbing and...
Yeah, we're having some plumbing issues.
Like, got any listeners that are plumbers that in the Phoenix metropolitan area? That might be
it's already been fixed. It's just, a lot of money later.
Yeah.
Plumbing is, not to be trifled with.
No, it isn't. It isn't.
Same with electrical. Like, just let people do that because YouTube's not going to help me that much.
Nope, sorry. Not these days.
Nope.
Ain't no money in that business no more. For me, I'm actually pretty excited. So, I had the book.
Yep.
I launched my book.
How's it going?
Not too bad.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to be doing a Comic-Con, a Phoenix Con. I'm going to be selling it at that. Yeah. Which I'm pretty excited. Got
Can you hook it up with passes?
I might be able to. We'll see.
Yeah.
I'll play your cards right, buddy.
Me and my eldest, maybe.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
I'll try and work it out, but I'm excited about that. But anyway, here on the show,
welcome.
We break this thing down a little bit in our two different styles. So Matt has more of kind of a fan perspective, more of the fun, kind of fancy-free, footloose type perspective. And
kick off my Sunday shoes.
There you go. And I've got more of the kind of critical, I don't know, like hard-nosed, negative and grumpy kind of perspective on the show. And so we give you those two perspectives. They come together to give you what we think is a real thought and real perspective.
Yes.
So today we're going to get right into it.
Yes.
After all that talk.
Yes.
We're going to talk about Pacific Rim.
Let's do it.
It's a movie that just came out.
Really?
It really did.
That is amazing.
It's directed by Stephen S. DeKnight.
Stevens DeKnight.
Yeah, there you go. Synopsis for it. Jake Pentecost, son of Stacker Pentecost, who we all know and love, reunites with Mako Mori, who we also all know and love, to lead a new generation of Jaeger pilots, including rival Lambert and a 15-year-old hacker Amara, against the new kaiju threat.
Yeah.
There you go.
True story.
It's got a pretty decent-sized cast, I guess. John Boyega is probably the biggest. Scott Eastwood, Rinko Kikuchi, Tian Jing, Adria, Charlie Day's once again in this. Let's see. What's the girl's Amara? Kaylee Spinney? I haven't seen her in anything prior to this.
Something like that.
Yeah. It's got a sizable Asian cast, which is interesting, which I don't have a problem with.
This movie crushed it overseas this weekend.
Okay.
It crushed it.
That doesn't
That's
surprise me.
actually what happened in the last one, too. It just barely made enough domestic and international box office was its saving grace. That's the only reason they did a sequel, and it's probably why we're going to get a third one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you kick us off then with that?
You want me to kick you off there?
With that rounding applause.
Okay, so it's no secret.
Discussion.
I am a fan of the first Pacific Rim, and all its cheesiness and glory, I thought it was really fun.
Yeah.
For Pacific Rim Uprising, the sequel, I was looking forward to it because I wanted some more of that. I found myself a little let down, a little bit, I think.
Okay. How so?
And
let's start with the
let's talk about that. Let down just a little bit. It's not terrible in my opinion. There was some fun to be had with it. Let's start with the positives. I like John Boyega. I think he's good. I mean, I didn't think anything was negative with that. I like John Boyega. I thought he was great. I think probably the standout to me was Amara. that 15-year-old girl. I liked her character a little bit.
Yeah. She floated the line between annoying and funny, and she did it well, though.
Right.
I felt like she was close to being in that annoying level, like what you got with the most recent Transformers movie. I forget that girl that was in that. She was annoying as heck to me.
Yeah.
But this girl was like, no, she's smart, but she's not too smart for her age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. Positives, for the most part, a lot of the battles were really cool looking.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed. That's probably where a lot of my enjoyment was, with the battles and stuff that you see, robots and kaiju and all that stuff. Like, seeing that stuff was really cool. Seeing some of the newer technology that they have on the Jaegers fighting the kaiju, and seeing that stuff, the level in which cities get just utterly destroyed is staggering in this film. And I enjoyed seeing that, but couldn't help, like, in the back of my head being like, who's paying for all this? And you're just like willfully like causing trillions and bajillions of damage.
I kind of felt that too, because I mean, there's a couple. Well,
anyways, I loved like fighting, destruction, and mayhem. It's one of the reasons why I think I'm gonna like Rampage so much. Right. And I love the first one. First one was a little different, but the first Pacific Rim was a little different in kind of how it portrayed some of that stuff. But this one was very bright. Mm-hmm. So it's not as dark and like kind of gritty as the first one.
Yeah, a lot
was.
of the fights in the last one took place at night, I think.
Yeah.
It was a lot of darker scenes and stuff.
I think
and
it was
underwater too, which is kind of darker.
I think it was a budgetary thing.
Okay.
Somewhat, it's just easier to animate it in darkness, I guess.
Makes
but
less things you have to show.
Other than that, that's really it. I liked a lot of the fighting stuff. I like John Boyega stuff and Amara, Kaylee Spaney.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that kind of ends like my positives. I guess not a ton, but that's. I went to go see Monsters Fighting Robots. I got a good chunk of that.
Yeah, I think similar positives to me. John Boyega was good. Charlie Day was good. I didn't really like where they took his character.
That's in my negatives. I'll tell you about that.
But his acting job was fine.
Yeah.
I really liked in the first film how he's so like manic and like whoa, crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he just was so funny.
It's a different kind of manic in this one.
Yeah. So I will say the fighting was pretty good at times. Cinematography was okay. Didn't feel like anybody as well was phoning it in with the acting jobs. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any more positives. I'm like, I'm reaching for it a little bit. I think, and I'm going to have to kind of tiptoe a little bit into the negative territory. I think the biggest thing to me, which they shouldn't have happen, or I shouldn't expect to happen in a film like this, is that I was bored.
Yeah.
And the first film was the opposite of that. It was so like, what? Yeah. And I know it did that through very simple means. You know, it's like, okay, well, we're leveling up the kaiju, and here's a new power that this, that the robot has. Like, I get that that's how that was accomplished in the first film, but I kind of needed a bit more of that in this one, mixed with a few other things. So that kind of tiptoes in my negative territory, I guess. I'm trying to think if there's any more positives, I guess. I mean, I do think the step that they took with the plot, without spoiling anything, made logical sense. It felt like, okay, well, this is realistic. It wasn't like they just went off in some completely divergent path. It was like, okay, well, that
tied to the first movie.
Yeah, it tied to the first movie well enough, except for one of the characters, which is just gone now, which I've researched a little bit, and they did that on purpose. They just
didn't explain it.
Yeah, the director said that he didn't explain why the character's in there because he wants people to question why he's not.
Right.
But it's literally because they were originally going to have him in the film, but he had scheduling conflicts with another film.
Yep.
And so instead of just coming up with a realistic reason for it, they're like, well, he's just not there.
At least it wasn't like Independence Day, and they're like, yeah, Will Smith died in an airplane training exercise.
I know, yeah. Well, it didn't, what? And that didn't make any sense to me in the fact that they didn't even really like, there was no images of him. There was no like video footage. There was nothing of him.
Well, his name
was
mentioned one time.
Right, one time, very briefly. But other than that, it's like, this is the guy that, and I'm spoiling it obviously a little bit there, but
it's not spoiler.
Not really a spoiler, but like, but it's like he's the guy that saved the day. I mean, he's the one that did it, and they're not even. There's no plaques. There's no statues. There's no memorials. There's no nothing. You know, I mean, like, Come on.
Yeah, I don't know.
Everybody else was super famous, and it's like
They
okay.
didn't talk about it, but like my assumption is that he's not dead.
Well, yeah, they kind of make it. The director and the article that I made it sound like he kind of did a bit of a retcon thing with this character
Sure.
in the story timeline.
Gotcha.
But they didn't really explain the retcon.
Nope.
So it doesn't make any
So
sense.
I think they could probably have him back for a third one if it worked out. But
That's what
anyways.
he's hoping for. He's hoping that it'll come back. He left it open-ended, didn't it?
Yeah.
But anyway,
Gotcha.
let's talk about some of your negatives.
Negatives. Let's get into negatives. Yo. Okay. First off, they wanted you to care about too many people in this movie.
Yeah.
I was like, there's like 8 like cadets. There's like scenes with cadets. I was like, I'm not gonna have time to care about all of you. But they invest enough of your time with them on screen where you're like, do you want me to care for these people? Like these are. I understand why they're in the movie. They didn't have to be.
Right.
It could be written completely different towards the end. But anyways, it took away from, overall. So Amara's character, I think she should have just been with John Boyega and just learning from him the whole time.
Yeah.
I think then you could have like done away with some of the side plot stuff. There was a random love interest that you could have removed everything out of the movie regarding it, and it wouldn't have affected the movie at all.
Well, and it didn't really make any sense for most of the movie until like sort of the very end. You kind of got a clear direction of where it was going.
But I was,
It didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It was like, are you not? Are you? What? Yeah.
But there's no weight to it. It was just like,
it just felt there.
yeah, it was just there. The other thing is, I did not like the plot decision for where they took Charlie Day.
Yeah.
I loved him in the first one. His manicness, like you were talking about. I loved him starting out.
Yeah.
Like I said in the beginning, he has a line where he refers back to the first Pacific Rim, where I was kind of giggling out loud because I was like, that's kind of funny. I was very self-aware at that moment. I would say the movie was, but other than that, it takes this turn, which is a spoiler I can't talk about, but I wasn't feeling it.
Yeah. I will say this, it felt, without spoiling what happens, it felt mean-spirited to me. It felt unwarranted.
Maybe that's why I was feeling it. I didn't like it.
Yeah, because he's kind of like a silly, beloved character from the first movie.
Yeah.
And again, not to spoil it, but you're kind of left going like, well, I understand why.
Yeah.
Like, it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. I understand why. I just did not like it. It just felt, I was like, oh, damn,
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of the stuff at the end of the movie, like something that he does, like it didn't make sense. The things I was like, where did that come from? Like
why don't we do like a brief spoiler?
Yeah, we probably have to do that. I don't know. Anyways,
because we probably have a lot we could say, but we'll
just for the sake of time. But I had a hard time connecting with the movie as a whole. I did feel kind of bored towards the beginning of the movie, especially that last act. I thought was pretty solid. I didn't like though how there was this like, I felt, I feel like this is Power Rangers right now.
Yeah. I was waiting for that. Go Power Rangers.
I felt like Power Rangers. You know what? If the new Power Rangers movie would have had something like that at the end, I would have been like, yes.
All it needed was like a fully skinned man and a lady with a giant staff going,
right. Yeah,
like in the corner. Yeah, sorry. That's Power Rangers if you don't know.
But I don't know. I was just like, I liked the grittiness and the darkness of the first one. It was more like kind of an underdog story, at least for me, is kind of what I felt like. What's his face? Raleigh Beckett's character.
Yeah.
In the first one, was kind of like, nobody liked him. He couldn't, he had to prove himself.
Yeah. Well, they tried to do that.
They didn't fully flesh that out with John Boyega because they were like, he's just like kind of stepped into it and was like basically had one misstep at the beginning and then he's good. Well,
they tried to do that a little bit with Amara's character, and they tried to do that a little bit with John Boyega's character's Jake, where they were both kind of like they could be good, but things are stopping them, and they have to overcome. It just wasn't interesting and relatable.
90% of the humor did not work for me in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't laugh. I was like, that's being played for laughs, but I don't.
I think I did laugh I had a chuckle with the la 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 that part.
I thought it was like,
that kind of funny. Yeah, that was kind of a chuckle. And there was a couple Charlie Day-ish lines that kind of made me chuckle a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly.
He said, I'll shoot you twice.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
It just, he still had some pretty unexpected type dialogue that was in there. And I think there was just a lot of choices for things. Like I kind of chuckled with John Boyega when he was like making the sundae, which I know I'm spoiling things. You know, he makes a sundae. I guess I spoiled that.
Oh,
but
yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know, like, don't mess with my top. Like that
Yeah.
was kind of funny. Some of the dialogue was a little bit,
Yeah.
but I wasn't expecting humor. I wasn't going into Pacific Rim Uprising going like, wow, I hope it's funny.
The first one wasn't funny except for Charlie Day.
Right.
Yeah.
He was that kind of comedic sidekick, that lovable.
Maybe you had too many people trying to do that in this one. Too many people.
Maybe.
Anyways, I don't know. I was kind of let down. I wasn't in it like I was the first one.
Yeah. It was like, I think that as well for me, not only were there too many characters, but there was just too much going on with the story.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like they were trying to, again, and I was afraid of this, but like really expand into kind of like an ongoing universe type thing with, now they have different companies that are competing for these different rival businesses, and then they've got the whole universe that we're going to invade, and like it felt like the first film again was very straightforward. It's like there was a lot going on in the world, but it was all just about the kaiju and trying to defeat them, Yeah. But yeah.
Yep.
And so this one I got kind of confused, and it was like this person's fighting that and dying, and they want this and the whole. Yeah, that's really what it was, I think. That first film, everybody's goal was pretty much one of two things. It was either just, screw it, I'm just going to live the way that I live until everybody dies, or it's like, I'm going to do my best to defeat the kaiju. And this one, it was like, I'm going to make money, we're going to prepare, I want to do my own thing. It's like, everybody was in their own little place. And so it just felt very mixed and cluttered and messy. So why don't you give your rating, and then we'll move into a little bit of spoiler talk.
The only reason I'm giving it this rating is because I had a decent amount of fun with the action. I did find it visually good, especially that last act. So I'm giving it a 70.
Okay, wow. I'm actually giving it a 73. So
really,
a little higher than you.
Dang, okay.
That's interesting. You must have really.
I was just like, ugh.
Maybe because your expectations were a lot higher for it.
I think it was a Charlie Day thing that really brought it down the most for me. But
Gotcha.
Anyways.
Well, let's get into it then.
Spoilers.
We're going to do a spoiler talks, counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Everybody dies.
Everybody dies.
No.
Yeah.
Charlie Day is.
No, but random guy. I forget who's the kid's name. Random kid died.
Random kid.
Yeah, one of the kids that was in one of the piloting one of the Jaegers dies, and you're just like, I guess he's dead.
the
I don't even remember his name.
Where his dad is a breast augmentation.
Yeah. He was like, well, he's dead.
Yeah.
Sucks for him.
They put too much time. I felt like they were trying to get you to like he's like, I'm gonna prove everybody wrong. I'm not gonna do what my dad does, you know.
Yeah.
And so
I guess he turned out to be a bit of a boob.
Yeah,
that's funny. Rim shot because these plastic surgeons.
Jokes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Charlie Day's character, man, it kind of ruined it for me. I liked him a lot, and this one, I started out, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. He's got a little bit more confidence and swagger because he's successful and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, he's actually like his mind has been being controlled to an extent or influenced by the aliens from the first one when he drifted with it.
It felt like such like a lore type fantasy thing, and it was weird to me because again, it felt like they were trying to expand the universe out and like add these new abilities that the kaiju universe kind of has. I would have been much more comfortable with the idea that he was really addicted to the feeling that he was getting from blending with the kaiju, and he was learning a lot, and that maybe the kaiju had used him to do something somehow that ended up like accidentally releasing the kaiju back into the world. I would have been much more comfortable with that. But the idea that they would like somehow invade his head.
Yeah.
Like, why would they invade his head instead of him invading their? It just didn't.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I didn't understand So basically they glossed over it. They were inferring that he cloned a bunch of kaiju like
somehow.
DNA.
Yeah.
Like that whole part at the end with the little like things that melted the
where do they come
together.
from?
Like what was that? Like
I don't even know where they came from.
They
like
didn't explain that. They were just like, it's been 10 years, and during this 10 years he's been plotting this thing.
He's been plotting to create a bunch of the drones that happened to just release the 3 that got out.
Well, because
that he would then use those things to create
breaches all along the Pacific Rim got released.
Right.
So like,
but he didn't know how many were going to. He thought it was going to take over the world. Like he thought all of those were going to get out. Right. So only 3 got out, and so then he decides, well, I'm going to release this bin of these little creature things to somehow create a super kaiju?
That was his plan B, he said. I don't know.
No, that wasn't plan B.
Yeah, that's
that was
what
like
he
plan
said.
C because he got knocked out right before he started plan B,
that's
remember?
Right, that's right,
So it's like, I don't understand what his plan was. If his plan all along was to just release the volcano thing, then he only really needed to release like 1 or 2 kaiju, But instead, he tries to release worldwide kaiju, which if he had done that, he would have taken over the world anyway.
What's really funny is
because the other thing that doesn't make any. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say is the Mount Fuji, like you got to be careful with whatever's gonna happen there, and they basically, sonic boom that.
I know, right?
Gypsy Avenger right into the right where the mouth of the opening is.
when the giant Jaeger was going down, that's when I was waiting for the go power, like as he's like flying down, like fist forward.
I was like, how is that not affecting the volcano right now?
Yeah,
like,
and then
why did that explosion
random
set something off?
Asian engineer girl shows up that's just capable of like doing exactly what they need. Like that, she just came in.
She was a
device.
businesswoman, yeah.
Right.
At first, so I was like, what? I don't know why is she like. We don't have
like
any
she comes across
as
just like a business girl, but then all of a sudden she's like able to like weld. Yeah, that didn't make any sense. And then, I was trying. There was something else that I was going to mention that just didn't. It didn't make any sense to me how they had so underwhelmingly prepared for the kaiju coming back.
Right.
Like you literally only had 5 like they had the same amount of pilots that they did in the first film.
One, right.
And it's been a decade and you're telling me you haven't done anything.
Yeah.
And the other thing that ticked me off as well was like it's a really good idea to create an army of robots that you don't have to literally be inside of to pilot. Like that completely made sense to me.
Yeah.
Like it shouldn't have to be a really difficult thing, and it just because then you can create just an army. And so it was like, well, they had to manipulate this. It just felt like it made sense what they were doing, but at the same time, it felt super manipulative at times as well.
Yeah, and they even had that scene where they were like, there was like pilots that were arguing. You're gonna have people behind the desks piloting these things. I'm like, no, that's not what they said.
No, you would still be a pilot.
You would still be a pilot.
Exactly.
You would just be doing it remotely.
Right. You just wouldn't die when your Jaeger got blown up.
Yeah.
That didn't make any sense to me. So there's just things like that were just kind of like, okay. Yeah. I mean, it felt a little bit unrealistic, which is hard to say
at first.
About a film
one thing
like
I
this.
appreciated that I'm glad they didn't really give any weight to is Scott Eastwood's character. Like I thought he was going to be like, again, the traditional, like kind of like in the first movie where you have the dude that's like, he's going to hate him for the whole movie, and then at the end they're finally going to bond. But that didn't really last that long. And it was kind of jarring though, because they went from one scene where they were like, where he like kind of tells him off in front of everybody, in front of the cadets, and then the next scene he's making ice cream and they're drinking a beer together.
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess it wasn't that bad, whatever.
It just, it felt again like they needed to have two people that were like, well, we hate each other, so that way later on in the film they can be like, well, now we get along,
right?
And I think what you said about Amara, I would have been much more happy. I would have been much happier if Amara and John Boyega characters Jake had just kind of partnered up throughout the course of the film. That
they
would have
didn't
been
need
more
all the
interesting
cadets. They could have used like they had. I thought they were interesting characters from the first one. That the Russians, and they had the other guys that were piloting the other Jaegers in the first movie.
Yeah.
This one you didn't have to have the cadets. It could have just been other people, like in the first movie. It could have been other people, and not. I don't know.
Well, and I will say this too. In the very, very end of the film, with the stinger, the little, we're gonna take the fight to you now. I'm just kind of like, okay,
that's not gonna work.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah. It's like part of the reason that you're so successful at doing this is because like you're on Earth and you've got the technology and the abilities to use things. So yeah. And speaking of, this was funny. You talked about like the damage that they did to the city. Mm-hmm. That was hilarious to me. They're just like using that gravity arm thing to shake the.
I was like, what? Several $1 billion, several more $1 billion. I'm like, who's paying for this?
Yeah, I know. And he's more like, how many of these is gonna take to kill the thing? And I'm just like, well, I'm more concerned about the fact that you're destroying the entire city to kill it.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I'm like, you can't just use more cars. Like you use that as a walloping thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I could have used more. And it was funny too, like the stakes would become like these insanely huge, and then it kind of backed off, and then it got big again, and then it kind of backed off, and it was like, are the stakes really high? Are they not? Are they what? You know what I mean? It was like they're releasing all the kaiju, and it's like, no, only 3 got out.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, but the 3 are super kaiju. And it's like, but you can just blow it up with one punch from the robot.
Right.
So it's like, okay, I don't know.
Yeah.
The first film was a lot more interesting in that regard because it was kind of like, it was almost like a duel you were having with like the kaiju, where it was like
it was like a game where it was like a new boss, each like level, kind of a thing,
and they had to
each one's progressively more difficult,
right? And combine skills with other Jaeger pilots and use those skills to effectively figure out how to defeat this one. And it wasn't like that at all with this one.
What was cool about the first one was they're like, oh no, that one has EMP'd and took out all the electronics, and they're like, wait, we still have Gypsy Danger, which is nuclear, or not nuclear, or whatever,
I think it was
analog. They said analog.
Maybe but it was
nuclear.
fission power, I think.
Yeah, something like that. So
fusion.
That was like, oh, that's cool. They're like Gypsy Danger. You know, I don't know. They didn't have Gypsy Danger in this one.
Yeah, if you were gonna have a Jaeger, what kind of Jaeger would you have? What kind of power do you think you would have?
Dang.
I know that's a tough question.
I thought
the
the Fast Samurai one was pretty cool with the swords.
Yeah.
I like the idea of having. I like Gypsy Danger from the first one a lot.
Yeah.
Even though there's like they had a sword they chose not to use to the very end. Yeah, I don't know. I like Gypsy Danger just because of the name.
I gotcha.
But,
I would do one of two. I'd either try and invent a camo Jaeger, because they don't have those right now, like one that like turns invisible or something like that.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Or I would do like the Paladin Jaeger and give him like a Jaeger horse, like rides in on a giant
Jaeger horse.
That'd be great.
You have to get like 2 other pilots just for the horse.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be funny.
Oh my gosh!
It's like, get there, gotta go for a ride. Like they don't have any vehicle. You think that by now they would at least put like rocket boots on them or something like that. Like,
yeah, and still have instead of having like helicopters carrying them everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Like you would have given them some sort of tech, but yeah.
I don't even
know. The whole plot line of like using the Jaeger blood, like that really didn't turn into pretty much anything, did it?
Well, they used that.
They
for
did. Yeah.
The boosters.
For the boosters, but didn't really go much anywhere. But anyway, all right. Well,
it's all good.
We'll go ahead and wrap things up then on the
it.
podcast. Again, as a reminder, some good ways to get connected to the podcast. Check out our Facebook, which is facebook.com/RealViewMedia. We have our website, which is realviewmedia.com. We have our Instagram and our Twitter, which are both at RealViewMedia. And then we'd love to hear your thoughts, opinions, perspectives on the movie. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, probably more the case. But who knows? Definitely send your thoughts our way, which is realreviewmedia@gmail.com.
Do it.
Yes. Matt, anything further for us?
No, that's it.
On the podcast. All right. Well, then, it's been real.
It's been real.